let's be real here. This was not high-end finishes. This is a real baseline abode that you are renting out. And I get it that things need to be fixed. They can't be, just be destroyed. But you're essentially, paying to either have things entirely replaced throughout the house, or what we would call, okay, things need to be addressed and fixed, paying a dollar amount that is just sort of well above what I would expect to see. Is there something I'm not seeing about the nature of this relationship that you had with these tenants? Why we're here asking for $15,000 in damages?
In today's video, we have a landlord suing for $15,000 in damages. The tenants claim their former landlord is taking advantage of the situation to completely refurnish the house with new items. What does the judge have to say about this? Let's find out.
Yep. Okay. Go!
Right. All right, so Cody and Savannah are defendants, and then I have a bunch of parties here. I want to sort of make sure I understand who's here and maybe rename some of you. All right, Barbara, what is it that you do for KJK?
I'm the manager for Village Estates.
All right. And then Michael, what do you do for KJK?
I'm in the accounts receivable department.
All right. Mr. Camerad.
Yes, I'll be primarily representing us. I'm the president of KJK.
All right. And Mr. Atuma.
I am a subcontractor doing maintenance.
All right. So this is file 230367SC, KJK Real Estate Management versus Cody Hickman and, I'm sorry, Savannah, what's your last name?
Pullen.
All right. I may hop around a bit here, but so it's my understanding that this was a landlord-tenant situation and this is no longer the case, right? You do not live there anymore.
Correct.
Did you have a case in landlord-tenant court?
No.
All right. And then how long were you there? Did I see that right? It's 8 years?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So 8 years and paying somewhere around $800 a month.
Yep, $895 usually, about $800 to $900, it varied.
I was going to say, because, I'm assuming it was probably cheaper the first lease and.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes up every year. Yep.
All right. But still, because a lot of things are going to happen here that are different than what parties think is going to happen here. So I just want to get my math straight, all of us on the same page, that what we are talking about is more than $75,000 successfully changing hands between the parties, right?
Correct.
And we're really just talking about after this relationship is over, how much money we need in damages and or unpaid rent.
Sure.
So I'm sure that you are familiar that what we are talking about here is you can recover something above and beyond normal wear and tear. I'll tell you right now that the numbers that you have, there's nowhere near you're going to get close to that. A lot of that's going to get whacked down as what I would consider 8 years of wear and tear. But let's start with, first things first, whether or not there's any unpaid rent due. Because that's different than damages.
Nope, we paid rent. We actually dropped off the keys and they said that we didn't drop them off until about a month.
I understand that. There's some sort of bizarre language here where the plaintiff is saying, since they didn't get the keys until February 3rd, that you would somehow owe the money for rent.
That's not true.
You're so full of baloney.
So I want to start with plaintiffs. I have this a 30-day notice at the end of November. They were going to be out at the end of December. Did you actually leave before January 1?
Yep.
All right. So are the plaintiffs saying that there is unpaid rent that's due?
Your Honor, there was, as of December 31, $58 in unpaid rent. A ledger has been provided with that detail. And then rent for January 1 through 3, following the language of the lease, the keys were returned on January 3. So those 3 days for $81.77. In addition, there's unpaid water and sewer bill, which the utility company charged to the community for $190.19.
Okay, and what were the dates of that use?
The dates of that use that let me pull this up. The final billing, the final meter reading was taken on 12/30 of 22. So December 30 of 22. And the final amount due of $190.19 when not paid by the tenant. The utility company passed that along as a balance due to the community.
Okay. Is that all for utilities, the 190.19, or is there another utility involved?
The tenant is responsible for water and sewer, which we just talked about, gas and electric. We asked the tenant to provide, they're responsible for those on direct payment to the utility companies. We asked for them to verify that those had been paid in full. We have not received a receipt indicating that. So we would still like the tenant to produce that so that we know nothing is going to be coming back to us as a landlord. The utilities company sometimes operate in strange ways where we don't find out about this until months and months later if there's an unpaid balance.
Okay, that burden would not be on them to, essentially, you do not have an outstanding utility bill for gas or electric.
No, it's in our name, so we paid it off and then it moved to our new account.
Transferred to our new house.
We never left anything existing at all.
So we have $81 in unpaid rent, $190.19 in unpaid utilities, and then we're ready to move on to damages unless you want to.
Your Honor, there's a $58 balance at December 31, plus the $81.77 for the 3 days of January.
What's this $58? How do you pay $58 less rent than you normally pay?
Sure, there was a ledger provided.
I mean, it's possible. I just don't understand.
Sure,
don't you pay the same amount every month?
There was a ledger provided to the court, and it's a function of late fees that arose on October 6th of 2022. And a consistent short payment of $3 for the total amount due. There's a due during that time frame of this ledger. The rent was $845, a recycle fee of $3, a pet fee of $50. So they were paying $895. There was a late fee on 7/7 of 2022, a late fee for $35, a late fee on 10/6 for $30, and then the short pay of the $3. Those things over the period of July 2022 to December 2022 left a $58 balance.
May I say something or no?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so when we signed the contract, there was no $3 recyclable fee. And then halfway through living there, they decided to add that, which never got added to our contract. And then every time we make that.
Was that ever added to your month-to-month lease?
No. Then we were told about it about 4 years ago, and then we made a couple payments and we quit doing it. And because they never proved that they recycled or whatnot. And then they ended up we made 4 years of non-making $3 payments. I don't understand why it'd be addressed now when if we would have missed a day payment, they would have adjusted any amount of money. So I don't understand why.
That's what I was going to ask them next too, is how do you have a late payment that's due months before they leave and you don't address it till after they left?
And we've
Why
never
wouldn't
had
they have
a
to
late
pay that
payment.
the very next month?
Right.
A monthly balance letter is sent out.
Absolutely not.
You had not received that?
At no point ever in
Ever.
the 8 years that we've been there. Absolutely not.
All right, let's move on because there's a lot of things here. Here's what I want to ask you, sir, as the owner of this company. You use a maintenance company, right? That's Mr. Atuma?
Yes, sir.
How do you know Mr. Atuma?
Doug's company has been doing business with us for several years, Your Honor. And
Not related.
not related by blood. That is correct.
All right, I won't pursue that any further, other than to suggest to you, you are getting numbers on maintenance contracts that I would certainly balk at as an owner, but we'll move to that. All right, so now we're going to get into damages. So there was a security deposit here. It wasn't much. What was it?
750.
750 maybe?
Yep.
700.
Excuse me, Your Honor, $725.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I'm sorry.
So $725 security deposit. So now what we're going to do is sort of crawl through these damages that were assessed, right? And here's where I'll tell you what the problem is. I looked at all your photos. Let's take carpet, for instance. You had a tenant that didn't leave for 8 leases, right? Essentially year-to-year leases. So that is, let's call that a boon to a landlord. That's fabulous because every time you have turnover, you have to go in there, clean the place out, replace, whatever went wrong, get it all nice and ready for the next tenant. You didn't have to do that for at least sort of 7 cycles with this tenant. You understand my logic at that point, right?
Your Honor, we signed 2-year leases with our tenants, so they went through 3 cycles. That is correct.
Okay. So here's the problem. You're trying to do things like saying, well, we're going to repaint the whole place, or we're going to replace all the carpet in the whole place. Those are not things that you're going to turn around and say that the tenant who lived there for 8 years is going to pay for kit and caboodle. That's just not how this works. I'm assuming you're a landlord, you do this security deposit all the time. You're allowed to get them for things like holes in the wall that are this big around, like I saw. And I find that the tenants in their written response are being infinitely reasonable in them agreeing with certain things that they realize have to be replaced, like when blinds are totally destroyed. The landlord has to get the next place looking nice enough that the next tenant says, okay, I want to live here. And so there's certain things, like when we're talking about a destroyed blind, that I think the former tenants are like, okay, I don't know what happened to it, but you understand why they're saying, we're not going to fix that. They're blinds, they're chewed up, bent, whatever. They're going to just get bought and replaced. But many of these big ticket items are just things that are not something you're going to charge them to replace. And essentially, they're going to provide you with $15,000 worth of remodel to this unit for the next person. I find it really disingenuous that you're even asking for that after you've received $80,000 from these people as tenants who weren't giving you issues. And I sit here and do this all day. I know that KJK is not coming in here and, nickeling, diming people all the time. I don't see that. So I don't understand why this particular case, we have, someone that you're saying $1,800. I've drywalled an entire house for $1,800. And you're talking about replacing. Let's be real here. This was not high-end finishes. This is a real baseline abode that you are renting out. And I get it that things need to be fixed. They can't be, just be destroyed. But you're essentially, paying to either have things entirely replaced throughout the house or what we would call, okay, things need to be addressed and fixed, paying a dollar amount that is just sort of well above what I would expect to see. Is there something I'm not seeing about the nature of this relationship that you had with these tenants? Why we're here asking for $15,000 in damages?
Your Honor, our claim is for $10,778, and as you know, we are limited
well, that's
to.
after they actually responded. If they hadn't responded to you, you would have just gone with your original numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even after they see, you originally tried to charge them $15,578 against their $725 security deposit, and then they responded to you saying, for 4 pages, saying, "Come on now, some of these things are reasonable, but you're asking $400 to clean a stove that's not worth $400."
Your Honor, when we've been in the rental business for a long time, and of course, you also see a lot of rental cases. But when our initial review of this home occurred with estimates, this is one of the worst damaged homes we've seen in many years. And so the appliances in the kitchen needed cleaning. After we are able to respond to their concerns and after we're able to get some actual invoices for work performed, many of these adjustments were made. And so you can see how the 15,000 or the high 14,000 mark comes down quickly to the 10,778. The cleaning bill in question for excessive cleaning of the kitchen appliance was $120. That's the actual damage claim based on the invoice.
Well, sure, but if you didn't have tenants that are actually concerned enough about their own hide here that they're responding in writing and willing to show up at small claims, if they had just not showed up, which happens plenty of times, you know, people move on and they say, "Fine, take my security deposit," we would have been with the numbers that you're originally here on. And that's why I'm saying I'm really cautioning, like, I know this isn't a common practice for you because you would be running into this same wall with me every time. I don't remember having an instance like this, but let me just move on a little. Normally, if you're talking about a lease that's up and then they left excessive junk and you have to come and pay somebody to haul that off, I understand that. But essentially, I'm just wondering when we're talking about, you know, that I need $600 for someone to clean out whatever it is that they left over in the home, which from the photos, I can't really tell what we're talking about. But you want $600 after they've lived there and paid you rent for 8 years.
Your Honor, again, you're looking at the initial estimate.
So if you paid someone $10 an hour, they spent 60 hours moving junk in and out of that unit after the tenants had left?
Your Honor, there are no $10 an hour laborers in our world.
And okay, I'll give you a $20 hour laborer. They spent 30 hours picking up piles of junk and moving it out of the residency?
Where would you bring the garbage, Your Honor? It has to go in a dumpster or a refuse service has to take it. And all of these things are part of the cost. So when
I agree, but I'm just saying that I'm a little bit offended that these are the numbers that someone who wasn't willing to come to their own defense and show up here or write these papers would have gotten me have to give you a default judgment for $6,500 because that's the max on a bunch of these sort of unanswered issues.
So, Your Honor, we've asked for $120 for the excessive cleaning of the appliances to save that appliance. We asked for $200 to remove a shed full of furniture and items, and we've left, including a tarp full of garbage in the yard. And we are asking for $95 to cover our costs for the leftover garbage that was in the home.
And then the other problem we have is essentially, and these are things that, you know, we sort of have to get back into the history of things, but I'm looking under the sink, right? And the sink is put together with essentially electrical tape. And then you're saying that, well, there's so much water damage, we're going to just replace the kitchen cabinets and we want the tenants to pay for that. And then normally the tenants would just take the hit for that, except that they're saying, well, yeah, I mean, we remember that and we asked so-and-so to come and fix it. And, you know, we're referring to people that probably haven't worked there for years. I just mean, at what point in time are we saying this is what they reasonably owe versus, look, you have to rehab your unit. You got, you know, you had tenants in there for 8 years. You're going to have to go in and sort of fix things, or like essentially, and I don't, some of these things, you know, I'd have to go back and look at the pictures. But when we're talking about light fixture covers, we're not talking about outlet plates, all right?
Correct. We're talking about the globes for the light fixtures on the outside of the home and throughout the home.
Okay. All right.
And we're talking about the labor, and we're talking about the labor
like,
you're on to pick that up. And
you know, window screens, things happen. I'm assuming, I think you had some pets. You know, if a screen has holes in it, that screen has to be replaced. I think the tenants sort of understand that, and we're sort of reasonable in their assessment. Well, let's look at it from another way, because these numbers aren't going to be nothing. They're going to add up. I think that Savannah and Cody realized there's plenty of items that were actually just what we would call damage. You know, the landlord doesn't have to just eat that. There's going to be money. It's that we have to come to terms with where that money is. So now I kind of want to turn, you heard me sort of, you know, pushing back on some of these numbers. But now really I'm going to turn to you. You understand at the end of the day, there's going to be a judgment here. You're going to owe this landlord money because it's going to eat up more than your $725.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
we just want this to be reasonable.
Yeah. The other thing too is, at least we can all agree when we're talking about like the linoleum and the carpet and stuff, we're talking about the real sort of baseline finishes that were in there to begin with. It wasn't like this was a good carpet, but you understand that if there's destroyed carpet, that's going to get replaced. It's just about how often would you have to replace carpet anyway, essentially. Because I don't know how a ceiling, you know, cracking is something the tenants are doing, that when, if it needs to be replaced and it's a popcorn ceiling anyway, you know, see here's one of the things. You had a roof leak that you did report.
Yeah.
and Your Honor, that's an item that's not charged here on this claim.
Well, it was to paint the roof.
The roof repainting has to do with how filthy the roof was, not to take care of the repair of the damaged area.
So we have never even smoked in there. We use, every time we've used the stove, we use the exhaust fan. So if there's any excess smoke or grudge, it would be from not the smoke not coming out the correct way.
But I will tell you, one of the big expenses that's just going to cost you at the end of the day, Savannah and Cody, is, you know, it's not easy to repair. When we talk about holes in the wall, if you're hanging pictures with nails, they're not even going to charge for that because you spackle it. But
sure,
if you got a fist-size hole in the wall, spackling that is an inferior option. A big enough hole, you're just going to have to replace the drywall, and that's not cheap. That's going to end up costing you money. And you understand that, like, once your hole is bigger than a reasonable, we drove a nail to hang a painting, you're going to be paying for that.
100%.
And, you know, let's see here. And I also did notice there was doors that were, you know, if you have a door and then there's a part of the door that's actually, you know, busted in or something like that, you don't really fix that. You replace the whole door.
Sure.
All right, so let's talk about some things we sort of do agree on. So with the blinds, there's plenty of blinds that just straight up need to be rebought and
Yes, absolutely.
paid for. And then and then you said, hey, we agree with that. We just think it's high. But they're telling you, look, those blinds they might be 32 bucks a piece, but that's if you get lucky that the size that the window you're talking about is the size of the blind that's on sale at the store. And if not, you got to pay someone the labor to sit there and cut those blinds and make sure that they add up nice. So in other words, things like replacing blinds, it's not just $32 per unit. I don't really have a problem with saying that it's going to take 4 hours to go ahead and make sure that those blinds aren't just, you know, popped in and fit nice. So even if we're talking about that, and then I don't know, do you have, is this a general labor rate that you pay your maintenance?
We're at 7 times 32 for a blind here.
Yeah.
210.
24, I'm fine with that. And then I have it, you know, and so you have about $240 in labor of 4 hours. So you're getting charged $60 an hour for labor.
May I interject?
$50 per hour, Your Honor. Doug, $50 per hour is the charge rate there, Your Honor.
Right.
May I interject?
Doug, let's proceed.
Okay.
I'm not telling you you can't say something, but I mean, if we just want to move on from there. All right, so we actually have door and door hanging. I'm assuming those aren't inside hollow doors from a bedroom or something. Those are actual doors to the outside, right?
Hollow.
No, those are the indoors, hollow ones.
Very hollow.
All right, but that's what I mean is let's take this, you know, break it down here. They're saying 4 doors need to be replaced altogether. So out of those 4, how many of those are inside outside doors?
I believe they're all inside, but we don't think it should be 4. It should be about 3. But I don't know what their note said, so I don't know if they said it was outside or not.
Your Honor, there were 4 inside doors.
All right. So those are hollow doors. How much are you paying for them?
And bifold doors. So.
All right, because you have $1,400 to replace those.
No, we have $940, Your Honor.
What is a bifold door?
That's a closet door.
What was wrong with
None of the closets had bifolds. One had a slider.
And the slider was still there
and
working.
The other 2 had
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. I was referring to the slider. And the claim, the request is, the claim is $940, Your Honor.
And the slider was there still working.
But that's what I mean by, I understand that you're requesting $940, but that's not really what you're requesting. You were requesting $1,400. So that's what I mean by, let's take an example and see how we get there. Now, a hollow core door, look, if you buy an indoor-outdoor door and you got to hang it, you're going to talk about hundreds of dollars. To buy an indoor hollow door and hang it, it's not really hung. It's attached to screwed into the frame. So essentially, even if we say that's 4 of them, do you see where I'm saying that these numbers, I don't know where you get them from?
Doug, could I ask you, Your Honor, may I have Doug elaborate on the cost of each of these door units and the cost to finish those and the cost to hang those?
Sure.
So we purchased those from Capital Supply. That's the only one that really sells them to fit these units. That's in Grand Rapids. So I'm running from Holland, Michigan to Grand Rapids to pick up these doors. Then I'm driving down to Allegan. I'm taking the existing doors off, taking the hardware off, installing that new hardware on these new doors and mounting them and fixing trim to make it all work.
Okay, and I understand that, but that's not the tenant's problem. that there's
That's-
only one kind of door there that you got to go, and you're getting paid to drive back and forth from Grand Rapids. I'm talking about what they should be paying is what we would consider to be a reasonable rate to replace an inside hollow core door.
Your Honor, isn't the reasonable cost what the actual cost is? Because if you wreck a door, why would that not be the reasonable
because
cost?
you could choose to put mother of pearl inlay in your kitchens and all your places. That doesn't mean that that's what they're paying to replace. What they're replacing is some of the just cheapest stuff that you have going on in a home there. Let's be real here. We're not talking about a high-end condo.
Your Honor, we're replacing with like kind materials. And so the costs are the cost. Yes,
and you know what that door costs? I'd be surprised if it cost $50.
Well, let's let Doug speak to that, please.
Yeah, I believe that those are 80. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I think they're about $83 each.
All right.
And when
so you charged him $1,151 in labor to put those doors in.
No, Your Honor, the total invoice on the doors was $940.
Okay, I understand why you're saying that, but I want you to quit saying it, because that's only because they put up a fuss. You billed them originally, and you said we need $1,400 to replace the doors that you broke.
Your Honor, may I clarify something that you and I are not seeing eye to eye on? When we did our initial estimate of cost, which is the very first notice to tenant you're looking at, those are all estimated items. When we revise that notice to tenant, it's borne out primarily by actual cost and the actual experienced cost and the invoices that support it. So therefore, the 940 is bearing the actual cost. This isn't a fishing expedition on our part to just throw a big number out there. Although I will admit on our first go around, the estimate is to make sure we are covered. But we routinely—
Here's the problem with your explanation, and it's why you're losing ground with me.
Okay.
Here's the way this works. When someone moves out, if you want to claim anything against, they have to give you an address, right? That's the first part. If they don't do that, they're screwed. The second thing is you have to mail them an itemized list of the damages you want. That's exactly what you did.
Yes, sir.
Then they responded to that saying, hey, half this stuff is BS. And then you responded to them. On February 10th of this year, we received your updated correspondence, which was in response to our notice to tenant. And then here's all the things you disagreed with. You went through them line by line, 1 through 18, and said half the time, oh, okay, well, here's the new revised number. So the thing you're telling me about estimate and actual is BS, because your first sheet where it says $1,400 says estimate. Your next sheet where it's down to 940 still says estimate.
Yes, sir. But at that time,
So let's talk about what you tried to do to these tenants. What you tried to do to these tenants is charge them, I don't even know what, hundreds of percentage of markup on the damage to replacing this unit. I find that to be either you're being taken advantage of by the people that are invoicing you, or you're here to try to take advantage of the tenants.
Your Honor, if that's
I'll let you tell me which one of those two you think it is,
Your
but
Honor,
I'm disturbed by this.
Well, Your Honor, I apologize for that appearance. I don't believe it's either of those items.
All right.
So and if I could back up, and I'm more than willing to go through each of these items, but we went through and on a timely basis made an estimate and sent this to the tenant. And then I believe had a good faith exchange with them to hear what they thought. And we're starting to get true costs so we can incorporate in those. We did not receive a forwarding address from this tenant. You'll notice that these mailings were going initially to their Village East number 7 residents. You'll notice that their move out notice did not give us a forwarding address. And you'll notice that Only when we received their initial mailing to us, replying to our first notice to tenant, were we able to ascertain what their new address was.
Well, sure, but were they having mail forwarded? How did they get your correspondence to the original address? They can do that as long as they're able to get the correspondence by, all right. But that's neither here nor there. Essentially, here's the problem. They owe you money, all right? It's clear that they owe you money. Like I said, Savannah and Cody, this damage is gonna be more than $725, all right? My problem is, I certainly am not gonna go with the numbers provided to me from the landlord, and I have a problem with the numbers provided by the landlord, so much so that I have to decide what I think is fair here, and what I think is fair is looking a lot like giving you less money than I probably even would have given you if we had just come in and said what these damages are and what they have to pay for. Because if they hadn't come in and put up a fuss, they'd have a judgment against their credit now for $6,500. I mean, so part of this is me sort of going through the motions here, that if we want to come in here periodically into court and go through this and have me continue to sort of talk to you in a way that I'm sure you don't appreciate, that's your option. We can do that on every case. But essentially, I just want you to get sort of a better sense of what I consider to be reasonable in these cases. Here's the other thing, just so we're all on the same page. Savannah and Cody, the number at the end of the day here of how much I would award in damages would be a lot higher if this was after one lease, right? Because after one lease, if we're looking at all the damages that we're talking here, that's you guys living La Vida Loca in this, in this house, all right? Now, realistically, when we start to spread that over animals and two people living life and whatever else, you know,
eight-year-old
child as well,
and a child, you know, we start to spread that over those several leases there, it looks more and more reasonable, all right? But you still know at the end of the day, you're going to get hit with damages here.
Absolutely.
But the other side of it is, when you have a relationship this long, where you're essentially both satisfied, you have a place to live and you call that home for 8 years, and the landlord's getting the rent that you agreed upon for, or by and large for, you know, 7 years and 11 months, that at the end of the day is a good relationship. Everybody sort of got what they wanted out of it. The problem is there's a certain cost here now for the landlord to get this ready for it to be the home for the next people, and he's spending more money than he should, because some of this is actual straight up damages, things that went wrong, things that he shouldn't necessarily be on the hook to pay for because they're above and beyond normal wear and tear. And we sort of would have got into that with things like cleaning, moving junk out, carpets, and painting, right? Because all of those things, had they been drastic in a shorter term, would have looked more to me like not reasonable wear and tear. So I want the landlord to sort of understand here, it's not like I'm saying you can't charge someone to get the place cleaned up, to get the place you know, looking nice with a fresh coat of paint, or put the carpet in. It's just that if you look at this the way I look at this, that you didn't have to do any of those things for several leases now, that starts to build up a bank of essentially credit with you, that you're saving money because you're not churning and burning with your tenants. And so by the time they do leave, and you're looking at carpet that probably should just be torn up and replaced, or you know what, it's not like we need to paint the bedroom, we should probably just give the whole place a coat of paint, we're going to have someone go in there and give it a deep clean. All of those things start to look to me more and more like that's just sort of a wash. That, you know what I mean? That's the sort of thing that you would have had to done time after time, but you didn't have to do that with them. So the fact that it's a little more drastic, paint the whole place instead of paint some areas, replace the whole carpet instead of get the carpet, you know, cleaned, spot cleaned or something like that, it looks a lot more like a wash. The things that we're talking about, they're definitely just going to cost you money, is, you know, replacing doors, replacing light fixtures, replacing holes in the wall, replacing blinds, all that stuff you're actually going to be paying money for. And so the reality is, at some point in time, what I have to do here is make a decision. And it's going to be a decision that parties are not going to be happy with, because essentially the landlord would always like that number to be higher. The tenants would always like it to be less. I just have to come in and go, boom, this is what I'm doing. So here's the way I want to explain it to you. Two things. First of all, damages is what I think that you owe. And then costs, the landlords, they paid certain money out of pocket to get us here. They had to pay a filing fee to court, and they had to pay you, have you served. $125.94. That is neither here nor there with all of the stuff we've been talking about. Just so you know, that's always sort of on top of a judgment. So essentially, what I'm going to do is, and then what I want to explain to everybody is that both parties have a right after this decision to say, I don't agree with what just happened in there. I want this to go to general civil. General civil in front of the district court is different. It's a lot more formal. It goes by what we call the rules of evidence. Generally, you would engage attorneys. So either party has a right to contest my finding here today, but I do think you probably need to weigh how much either more money you think you could get or how much less money you think you could get from this judgment once you start involving attorneys. But what I'm going to make a damages finding for is in the amount of $3,225. Of that, $725 is a security deposit that will not be coming back to the tenants. So what we have is an actual new damages award of $2,500. I consider that to be for things that literally need to be replaced because they're broken, and that should come out of the tenant's pocket. A lot of the things that I would, like I was referring to, that are things that like carpet, paint, cleaning, moving out items, I consider that to be a wash with just the sheer length of tenancy that we had here, and the fact that I think about $80,000 or so has changed hands over the years. But so the damages award is in the amount of $2,500. Like I said, there's $125.94 in costs. That will be the judgment that is sent out to parties. You do not have to wait for that judgment. If either party is thinking, nope, that's no good, I don't agree with that, I wish to contest this, your right on appeal is this: you must ask for that appeal within 7 days of today's date, and you must ask for that appeal in writing. Otherwise, the window of opportunity closes. All right. So essentially, if you accept this finding, the parties need to be in touch with each other to determine how that money goes back and forth. And if either party is not accepting of this finding, you do have a timetable to appeal it further. Both parties understand their rights on appeal?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and release parties. Thank you for coming in by Zoom.
Thank you so
We're all
much.
Thank
set
you.
for what we needed to do here.